Hi everyone, and thanks for joining us today. We've got a bit of a roundup, going to be a furious roundup because we're all frantically trying to get things in place ready for Thursday. So Katrina Pierce, who is from the FSB, who we speak to quite regularly, has very kindly again offered to give her sound advice and update us on most things, all things or most things that she can. I know there's lots of changes still to come, isn't there, Katrina, as the days go by, but as I say, we're trying to get things in place very quickly. So if you could give us an update, Katrina, on what our partners may need to know and what they need to consider on the run up to Thursday now.
Absolutely, thank you, Samantha, and hi everyone. I'm sure you're not that pleased to see me again, because usually when I pop up it means that there's been some major government shifts or announcements, so I'm sorry to darken your door again, but hopefully we can give you some clarity and a bit of advice today on the way forward from here, and what is likely to happen over the next month. So I'll go through some really headline stuff. I will give you a slight caveat now. Things are changing almost by the hour, by the day. So some of what I tell you is correct at the time I'm telling this to Samantha. By the time this is broadcast, obviously things are changing. So do keep abreast of what's happening in the news. I'm sure Visit Lincoln will keep you up to date. Everything I'm going to tell you is true as of today, true at the time of publishing, we'll say. And hopefully some of those changes that might come will be in your favour, but I just can't go into them now until they're confirmed. So let's start with bad news, shall we? Let's start with, we are going into another national lockdown of 4 weeks. Fingers crossed it will just be 4 weeks, and that is from the Thursday the 5th of November through to Wednesday the 2nd of December. So that is, I'm sure as we all know, being enforced due to rising infection levels and increased numbers of hospitalisations across England. This is just England at the moment. We are obviously subject to all of those, and our heads are spinning a little bit because just a week ago we thought we were teetering on the edge of going into tier 2, which would have affected your industry above all, and also had some social implications. We were teetering on the edge of that. The Director of Public Health then pulled back and said, actually, looking at the stats, we don't feel that's necessary here. There was a lot of fingers crossed that hopefully we stay in tier 1 until this thing, I don't want to say blows over, because I don't think we're in quite blows over territory, but until we're out of the worst of it. It's always very confusing. That's why there was quite a rushed press conference on Saturday night that I'm sure we all waited an hour, half an hour, an hour and a half for, and then finally came through with the news that yes, due to the rising infection levels, we are going into a 4-week national lockdown. So as I'm talking to you on Tuesday the 3rd, so we are just 2 days away. So there's a lot to think about, a lot to get ready for. So let's start with the bad news about what has to close. There are some differences from lockdown 1.0. There are some distinct differences, and we'll go through those. But what has to close, and this is a long old list, but I know this incorporates a lot of Visit Lincoln partners and members, so we'll go through them. Okay, so from first thing Thursday morning, what must be closed? All non-essential retail, so that's clothing, electrical, vape shops, vehicle showrooms, travel branches, travel agents, betting shops, auction houses, tailors, car washes, anything that is declared non-essential. Indoor and outdoor leisure facilities must close as well. So that's bowling alleys, leisure centres, swimming pools, gyms, golf courses, driving ranges. Forgive me looking at my notes, but there's a lot to remember. Dance studios, stables and riding schools, soft play, that does include soft play areas, climbing centres, archery and shooting ranges, water and theme parks. Even if some of those are outside, unfortunately, they must close because they, of course, attract people in groups. So they must close until at least the 2nd of December. Entertainment venues, again, unfortunately, after only just starting to see a bit of light at the end of the tunnel, venues, music venues, theatres, concert halls, cinemas, museums, galleries, casinos, bingo halls, again, bowling alleys, zoos and other animal attractions, even though they're outside, again, must close. Personal care, so our hairdressers, barbers, beauticians, tattoo artists, piercing shops, piercing parlours, tanning shops, nail bars, all need to close again because of that close proximity. So that's from Thursday morning. Now, there are a few differences here, and it's mostly around what can remain open, in what circumstances they can remain open. Food shops, of course, can remain open because that's essential. Garden centres, make of that what you will, whether you declare that essential, whether you care that much about gardening, but they can remain open. Those selling essential goods, so that's a very, very broad term, but essentially it's things like pharmacies, essential household goods can remain open. Any that do remain open, of course, have to do so in a COVID secure manner. So all of those cleaning measures, 1 in, 1 out, distancing in queuing, that all still applies. None of that has changed. And if anything, it's worth ramping up slightly. It's also worth bearing in mind that local authorities might do some spot checks around. So it's worth just being as diligent as you possibly can. I think most people are pretty well practiced about what COVID secure means by now, but we are not in the territory to let any habits dip, I'm afraid. So all of that must remain. Takeaways can remain open. So if any of you run a restaurant that has been closed, a pub, a restaurant, a cafe, but you can operate a takeaway or delivery service, you can remain open. That's not for walk-ins, that's not for people to walk in and sit down, that is for takeaway only, delivery, drive-through, they can remain open. But otherwise, for sit-in, restaurants, bars, pubs must close. And if you are doing a takeaway service, alcohol cannot be part of that takeaway, it's only food. So that is a slight different from before. You cannot do a takeaway service on alcohol. Playgrounds can remain open. Again, that doesn't include soft play and that kind of thing, just your usual playgrounds. If any of you have got those sort of playgrounds on your territory, they are allowed to remain open. Unfortunately, hotels, hostels, accommodation, B&B must close to leisure bookings. You can remain open if you've got people staying that are essential workers, so people in the NHS, people working in construction or manufacturing, because those sectors are staying open. If you've got existing bookings with those, you're safe to keep those bookings. For anyone that was travelling to stay with you for a leisure booking, just for a short break, you are going to have to contact them and make arrangements, I'm afraid. Not the news we wanted at all. But those are the breaks at the moment. So if you have got dining facilities that you can keep open in a takeaway or delivery fashion, that's an option. That's slightly different from last time. Now, there are some other exemptions, some limitations, but they're due to be set out in law in the next couple of days. So again, this is where things are changing pretty quickly. So if we've got any further updates for you, I'm sure we'll get those to you as soon as possible, but that's the headline for who's open, who's closed, and in what circumstances. So I hope that's clear. Now, let's talk about funding a little bit, because you can't possibly be expected to close your business down with a few days' notice without any funding. So like last time in March, there are likely to be some local authority grants coming through. At the moment, they aren't looking to be as extensive or anywhere near as extensive as they were in that first round, the £10,000 and £25,000 grants. At the moment, on Tuesday, the 3rd of November, we are not seeing those as extensive as they were before. At FSB, we are pushing for that. We're having direct conversations with the Treasury to get that extended, because if you're being expected to close for a month, at least a month, and fingers crossed it is only a month, you need to have some fair funding. So again, those will be administrated by the local authorities. So whoever paid you your grant before will be the same place to apply and get in contact with your local authority. There are some vague bandings for what those grants might look like. So they are a maximum of £3,000 per month per 4-week closure. So if you are a small business, and it's all again dependent on your rateable value, you're looking at around £1,300 for that month. If you're a medium size, and again look at the banding at your rateable value banding for that, you're looking at around £2,000 grant. If you're on the larger scale, you're looking at around £3,000, and that is a maximum of £3,000 at the moment. Anything changes, if that increases, we'll let you know. But at the moment, that's what we're standing at. Now, those were the levels introduced for tier for those. If we think back a week when tiers still mattered, that was what was introduced for tier 3 areas that were only due to be closed for around 3 weeks at a time following review. We know we're going into national lockdown of at least 4 weeks, so that has been extended for that 4 weeks, but the amounts haven't changed. So we'll be pushing, but at the minute, that's what you're looking at. There is some good news, though, on furlough. So over the weekend, we were due to see the very end, the complete closure of the job retention scheme. It had been winding down over the course of a few months with various amounts that the employer would pay, various amounts that government would pay, and that was due to come to a formal close on 31st of October, with the new job support scheme coming in on the 1st. I think we can agree for the time being that one's moot, but the full furlough scheme has been brought back at its full strength of 80% of wages at a maximum of £2,500 per month. So that's as we were back earlier at the start of the year when the scheme was first introduced. This is really good news. This will hopefully save jobs. You can keep your staff in place for this month closure, furloughing at 80% of their wages. A slight difference from when the scheme was launched the first time, when it was at 80%. You will be expected to pay national insurance and pension contributions, which is slightly different from last time, but government will fund 80% of wages. If you want to top up the extra 20%, if you're in the position to do so and you want to, you can. You are under no obligation to do so, but you can tell your staff that you can furlough them for that month if you have no work for them, and you'll get 80% of their wages. The flexible furlough will still apply. So if you are one of these businesses that wants to open for a few hours a day on a takeaway basis, but you're not going to need all staff in all the time, there is a flexible furlough option still available. So you can have them working part of the week and furloughed part of the week. That's still in place. You will be able to re-furlough staff. So this isn't just applicable if you'd still had all of your staff on furlough right until the very end of the scheme. If you had them on full furlough at some point in 2020, you can re-furlough them. So if you were getting your business back up and running, you didn't need them on furlough, but now you do, going from Thursday, that's fine. The scheme there is there for you. You will claim via the same HMRC portal as you always have done, so there'll be no changes there. And hopefully by now you've had a good few goes at administrating that scheme. It should work just the same, but you'll just have to pay those national insurance and pension contributions. So that's good news. That full furlough scheme has come back for the duration of this lockdown. We believe it will be extended, if the lockdown is extended into December, that the furlough scheme will roll along with it parallel. And the new job support scheme is not going to go live until furlough fully closes, at which stage it's expected that we won't go into any full national lockdowns, but let's keep a watchful eye on that. So you don't need to worry about the job support scheme for now is the main message. Focus on the furlough scheme that you already know very well. Elsewhere, there's been no changes on VAT. The deferred VAT that was due between March and June this year can now be paid in smaller amounts up until March 2022. That's no change. Again, if anything does shift over the next few days, I'm sure we'll let you know, but at the moment that's unchanged. Also no change to business rates either. We're pushing for 100% business rate exclusion or holiday for businesses as those payments were due to come back. That's a big old outlay. I don't need to tell you that's a big upfront cost to a business. So we're pushing for that to be for exclusions to come in, even if it's just for this month or even if it's just until the start of 2021. No news yet, but we are working on it. So fingers crossed. Other good news, if you are a self-employed trader, you were going to be looking at a payout of around 40% of your average profits for this next period. That has been boosted up to 80% again, right back up to 80%, but only for the month of November. And again, it's based on your average profits. It's not turnover and it's not takings or income. It is based on profit still, but that has been boosted back up to 80% for November. Then it is expected for December and January to go back down to 40%. But again, that all depends on how long this lockdown lasts, if it does roll on into December. But at present, you're hopefully going to get a nice surprise there. If you'd made peace with the fact that it was 40% payment, it's going back up to 80%. That's the main headline stuff. It's really around the rules on who can open and close, making sure if you're at all vague on whether you're a retailer that thinks you probably can open on a click and collect basis or a ring and reserve service, do your homework, get in touch with us if you need to, or visit Lincoln. Essentially, if you're selling household essential items, pharmacy, food, you are fine to open. If you sell clothes, household furnishings, anything like that that's deemed non-essential, you can open on a ring and reserve or click and collect basis. It's probably wise to get people to collect on a 5 or 10 minute interval so you haven't got people queuing outside of your shop or fundamentally queuing inside. You can't have that at all. Make sure you've just set up a really good system for people arriving at your shop, being able to get their products, pay and get away. So it's being called click and collect. You don't have to build an entire website to get this done. It's a big catch-all term. Ring and reserve is fine. If people need to ring you up, ask if you've got a certain item in stock and you have pay for it over the phone, reserve it and they then collect it, that's absolutely fine. But again, get people to come at 5 or 10 minute intervals. Don't arrange for everyone to come at 1 o'clock because you only want to be there for an hour. Make sure you are being really sensible because local authorities and the police They do have authority to disperse crowds, disperse queues, and if you're trying to keep some business rolling in, you certainly don't want your queuing customers sent away. So we'd be really sensible about the queuing intervals or the arrival intervals there. Make sure that if you have any work done in any of your venues, tradesmen still can still work, tradespeople rather, can still work in homes and in businesses. So if you need a plumber, you need an electrician, decorators it's a little bit vague on, but again, if it's all COVID secure, keeping distance, the hygiene measures being kept up, you should be fine. That's as of today, unless anything changes. So that's big headline stuff on what can open, what can close. The big news really for your sector, I think, is on furlough and the grants. Please do you take advantage of the furlough scheme. It's come back in full force. It's there designed to keep your businesses ticking along and your staff in post, because that is important. Your business is fundamental to this county and to the national economy. And the people you employ are also vital. We don't want to see a huge dip in job numbers in Lincolnshire any further than we have done already. So hopefully that will be enough to keep jobs in place, keep your business ticking along. And there are some differences that enable some businesses to stay open this time. So hope they apply to you and you're able to take advantage of them. But that's the headline stuff as of today. We'll see what Thursday brings.
Yeah, thank you, Katrina. I know there's such a lot to get through.
There's a lot there, isn't there? There's a lot there.
And as you say, things are changing so quickly. And I know that perhaps sometimes, you know, things behind the scenes are happening at such a pace that it's difficult, you know, to keep up with all the news. And I really appreciate you spending time to come and speak to me today. I think you're right. You know, the furlough scheme is something that was definitely needed, and I'm really pleased to see it extended, as I'm sure you are. And it is vital for those businesses that are going to have to close down completely, because we, you know, for numerous reasons, we don't want to see people losing their jobs. We don't want people losing money. I think if they can just hold on, let's get through these 4 weeks. And I know we said this before, and it seems like deja vu that we're just sitting here saying again, just hold on. But we really need them to, you know, sit tight, do what you need to do. I think as well, just going back to what we said about the click and collect, and I know you and I have talked about this previously before we're just making this recording actually. Click and collect is slightly different this time than it was before, isn't it? And people are able to do that. I know that there is a conversation tomorrow around this whole click and collect, and I understand there's some, I suppose, nervousness, quite rightly so, that we don't want retailers to have queues of people coming in collecting their items. So I think that yes, if we just as a business try and remember that, let's think of it as maybe making a phone call, reserving something, and then coming and getting it, you know, rather than click and collect. And having those time slots is that's what's going to be needed, isn't it? More than anything, those time slots, so that you don't have a number of people just turning up in your shop all at the same time waiting to collect something. I think people are going to be very careful about how they space that time in out of collecting their items, because that will, like you say, that's
vital. It's to keep your customers safe. It's to keep you safe as well.
Yeah.
If you know, if you've got yourself or your staff in there, it's to keep them safe while the infection rates are quite so high. It's to keep you safe, keep your customers safe, keep your business open, and hopefully just get through this very, very difficult next month. But that is a difference this time, and hopefully we are going to go through this a second time. We are benefiting from some lessons learned, I hope.
Definitely,
the most draconian lockdown of things like drive-throughs could probably always have remained open as long as the staff were kept safe. Delivery is absolutely fine as long as, again, the staff are safe. So there's been some lessons learned. It's not perfect because it's happening at speed in extremely difficult circumstances, but there are some differences which I sincerely hope will benefit your members.
So.
But things will inevitably shift and change more, inevitably. But here we are, just before a big period as well, when we were going into a busy period for retail with Christmas. Hospitality is never busier. Really, really sad. So let's see what December brings. One thing I should also mention as well, that if you are using the furlough scheme, or you've used the furlough scheme at any point in 2020, for any staff that you do keep on and you manage to keep in post until the end of January, you're going to get £1,000 bonus for each member of staff. I nearly completely forgot to tell you about that.
Yeah.
There's so much happening. So like Samantha says, I know it's very easy for us to say, hang on. It's very, very, very easy for us to say that, and very difficult for you to face, and very difficult for you to actually to sort, essentially, just to say, hang on, keep those jobs in. But the furlough scheme's there for you. The bonuses will come in the early new year if you can keep those staff in post. So there's hopefully light at the end of the tunnel. We've inevitably got a difficult autumn and winter to get through yet, and we're a place that relies on a lot of tourism, relies on our fantastic retail sector, relies on people wanting to come and visit our lovely county for our lovely restaurants and shops and hotels. For the moment, we have to sort of wave them a distant see you soon rather than a bye, and hope that 2021 brings much better things. So there are grants coming through, the furlough is there, the bonuses will be there at the start of the year. It's just hold tight, strap on, and get through it now.
Do you know, so I've got a couple of questions from a few of the partners, and I'm not sure if you'll be able to answer them, so no pressure. I know that before, when we went into lockdown the first time, I think all of the supermarkets were allowed, obviously, to open, but weren't selling non-essential items. So, i.e., they didn't sell clothes, and the makeup department was closed down. Do you know if that will still be the same this time?
There's been no word of that. So obviously there's been a lot of news coverage about what's happened in Wales, that Tesco and Asda and Sainsbury's were all open, but for food and vital items only. So like you say, makeup, household luxuries, clothes weren't available. They were all taped off. There's been no word on what will happen here in England now. There's been a significant amount of backlash in Wales around that decision. For people saying, well, if I can't get baby clothes or sanitary items elsewhere, where am I supposed to get them at this time? It's very hard to tell what they'll do. With 2 days notice, we need to know very soon.
Yeah.
And I've been hearing from FSB members who are saying, well, if I've got to close and I sell hair dye or baby clothes, why can Tesco stay open and sell them? And that's, as particularly as we represent smaller retailers and smaller businesses, we want to see a level playing field, complete fairness. I think what it is actually coming down to is risks of supermarket staff being abused for simply doing their job and roping off parts of aisles and parts of the shop. I think we saw some quite disgusting behaviour last time in lockdown towards supermarket staff, of people who are just trying to do their job. So I feel part of the avoidance of that will be just to stop supermarket staff being abused. And also logistics. Actually, it's not always easy to just tape off entire aisles when it might have some essential items in that aisle, but also some not. So at the moment, that was a very long-winded way of saying I'm not sure what they'll do. There's been no definitive guidance on what they can and can't do in supermarkets in England. You would suspect they would do what they've done in Wales, but again, because of the backlash and because of the logistics, it's hard to know. So as of today, on the 3rd, we don't know what will happen with supermarkets, but maybe we'll want to see an equal playing field.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get some clarity on that, coming into Thursday, because it is difficult, and I completely see it from both sides, really. But there is the argument that if you, as a small retailer, aren't allowed to trade, then why should the big players kind of be? I get big it. Boys. Yeah, it's a very tricky one. But yeah, let's hope we get some clarity around that, and then we'll just be governed by the guidance that we're given. One of the other things that a couple of partners have asked, and again, not so much a tricky one, but so if a accommodation provider has got somebody booked in this evening or tomorrow, are they still allowed, or where would they stand in accepting them? And you may not be able to answer this, as I'm saying, because their stay would maybe take them to the weekend or Friday, and obviously at that point we wouldn't be allowed to have guests come. But if they actually arrived before Thursday, well, before 1 minute past 12 midnight on the Wednesday, it's not midnight, sorry, early hours of the morning, sorry, forgive me. What are your thoughts on that? Sorry, I'm getting confused with all my timing.
Well, that's the thing, it's all very confusing, isn't it? And there's so many what ifs and specifics and dependencies. It's very hard to draw black and white, lines across the stuff, but looking at the guidance, that tells me if you have any guests on your premises at a minute past midnight on Thursday morning, they should not be there. You are closed. You are considered closed unless they are there as a key worker booking or someone that has to travel for work. They shouldn't be there. If you've got someone that arrives tomorrow, arguably, so tomorrow's Wednesday, they shouldn't be there past midnight. So arguably that does realistically shut down overnight stays from tomorrow.
Well, I think
it's
that's
very difficult to say one way or the other, but yeah, the guidance I think really says from a minute past Thursday, accommodation providers, unless it's for some of those specifics on key workers, you are essentially closed, should not have overnight guests, should not have people staying with you. You are essentially closed down as a business from that time. So, and you can't then service your guests if you're a closed business, you can't accommodate them. So realistically, yes, that's a good point for accommodation providers. That realistically shuts things from tomorrow for you.
Yes, it has. I mean, I've had several calls from accommodation providers who've asked exactly this question, and I have given the same answer as you've just given. But in theory, that actually means that they got closed down. They could have been closed down since Monday, or if somebody's wanted to come for a
essentially, if someone was coming for a week's booking.
Which again is a difficult one.
And there's so much to sort.
Yeah,
and there's just so much to sort now for anyone that had bookings throughout November and early December. You've now got to not only mentally deal with that we're going into another lockdown, your business has to shut again, but administratively deal with cancelling or rearranging 4 weeks worth of bookings. So it's a lot to deal with at very short notice, and it's the news that we all hope we wouldn't hear this winter. Here we are. But yes, that is a very good point, that for the hospitality industry, in terms of overnight stays, B&Bs, hotels, hostels, for anyone that's there for a leisure break, they shouldn't be there past midnight on Wednesday, unfortunately.
Okay, right. Okay, well, I think we've gone through as much as we could for today, and who knows, by next week things may be slightly different again. But
who knows? Hopefully we'll be able to come back with some better news on grants.
Yeah, and I think actually the news on the for self-employed people and the extension of furlough scheme, that is good. It's not fantastic that anybody's got to close down, but it's good that those provisions were extended, because it will help just a little bit, eases the burden of the finances a little bit.
Yes, absolutely, and that's what this comes down to. Businesses are happy to play their part in closures if they understand the reasons for it, but they have to be supported along the way. They have to have the support to close down, to keep jobs in place, to be able to restart again come December. The support has to be there. FSB will keep fighting for as much fair, fast and generous support as possible. Of course, the decisions always lie with the government, but we'll do all we can to keep fighting on your behalf. If there's anything locally I can do, please do let me know. But there we are at the moment. That's where we are with furlough, grants, VAT, rules of opening and closing. So I hope that's been useful. I know there's a lot to get your head around, and hopefully we'll speak again soon with either some better news or some evolved news anyway. Yes,
definitely. And continue with the lobbying. You do a fantastic job for everybody, so please keep that up. I did see a lovely
fighting the good fight.
Yeah, I saw a photograph of you only, I think it was a couple of weeks ago. You were down in London. I saw that, so I was kind of like, oh, I know Katrina, go. It was really nice. Yeah, it was like, go, and go and fight our corner. It was great, and we do all appreciate it. And I know that I speak for lots of our partners as well that really appreciate that. And I would say that for any partners that want to know more about the FSB, how they can get involved, be a member, what support you can give them. I know that you're always welcome to let people contact you, aren't you? So I will gladly pass your details on. Right. Thank you for that then. And as we say, we'll speak soon with evolving news or new news. We'll see.
Just new news. It's all a case of new news now, isn't it? Yes. Yeah. We'll speak soon. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Katrina. Thank you.